Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I saw him do it. Dad stood by the bar, the skyline of Dallas behind him, sun dipping just enough to set everything gold. He held a tiny glass vial between two fingers, like it was nothing, and tapped a few drops into the bottle of Glenfiddich he'd been saving for special occasions. Then he slid the vial into his jacket pocket like it was muscle memory. He didn't know I was watching. My name's Ben Lasker. I'm 24, just graduated from an aviation mechanics program in San Antonio. Tonight was supposed to be about that, but I already knew better. The server came over, young guy, nervous, probably paid triple for the night. Dad leaned in, said something to him, and nodded toward the bar. One glass, just one. That's all he poured. Then he turned and scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on me. I didn't move, just stood there like a target, watching my father lift the glass and give the smallest nod. I walked up and took the drink from the tray without a word. He smiled, not big, just the satisfied curl of someone who thinks a plan just clicked into place. But I didn't drink it. I turned around, scanned the rooftop until I spotted my older brother near the balcony. Eli, in his usual custom-tailored everything, holding court like a damn senator. I walked over. One drink before the big toast. I held mine up. He didn't even blink. About time. Cheers. And in that second, like it was the most natural thing in the world, I switched our glasses. He took mine. No questions. Tilted his head back and downed it in 2 gulps. I kept mine in my hand, watching his face. He laughed. Christ, you're jumpy tonight. Behind him, across the rooftop, I saw our dad watching. He'd seen the switch. I know he had. But he didn't react. He turned away, smoothed his cuff, and disappeared into the crowd like he hadn't just tried to drug his own son. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I stood there, glass still in my hand, Eli already moving on to the next conversation. All I could think was, what the hell did I just stop? I didn't follow Eli. I stayed planted right where I was, just far enough from the crowd to get a clear look without being dragged into it. Everywhere I turned, press badges, slick suits, designer heels. I didn't see a single classmate, not one. No instructors, no one from the hangar where I spent 2 years busting knuckles and eating gas station lunches. Just clean hands and expensive smiles. The banner read, "Celebrating the future, energy meets innovation." Real subtle. Dad's logo was slapped across everything. Napkins, step and repeats, cocktail stirrers. The whole rooftop reeked of stage lighting and corporate funding. A senator from Houston shook hands with some oil exec from Midland, while 2 reporters from some tech podcast did a slow pan with their phones. This wasn't a graduation party. It was a goddamn PR stunt for Lasker Energy. And I was the prop. Across the terrace, my mom floated around like some kind of political wife. Her smile didn't crack once. Perfect teeth, perfect skin, perfect dress that looked like it cost more than my entire student loan debt. She directed a photographer toward the view, pulled a junior exec by the elbow into a photo op, and kept a steady eye on every camera angle. She'd always been good at looking like someone important. What pissed me off most was how normal it all felt. I'd been down this road since I was 10. Eli got the spotlight, I got the guilt trip. You like taking things apart, Mom used to say when I'd be out in the garage, covered in grease. But one day, you'll need to think bigger. People don't get rich fixing engines. Dad didn't waste words like that. He just laughed when I told him I wanted to go into aviation mechanics. So, you're gonna crawl around under someone else's plane instead of building your own. I used to fight it. I'd yell, slam doors, go days without talking to them. But after a while, I stopped trying. I'd go out to Grandpa's old barn with a busted weed trimmer or a scrap alternator and just lose hours in the work. Machines made sense. My family didn't. Grandpa Lasker was the only one who ever got me. He flew bush planes in Alaska, ran his own little backcountry charter business for 30 years. Taught me how to read an engine before I could parallel park. When he died, I didn't cry at the funeral. I cried 2 days later when I found his logbook still sitting on my shelf. What no one knew, what even I didn't know until I was 17, was that Grandpa had left me a trust fund. A big one. The catch. I didn't get a dime unless I earned a degree or turned 25, whichever came first. That was the only reason my parents hadn't totally given up on me. Deep down, I think they thought I'd drop out, miss the deadline, and the money would roll back into the estate, or worse, to Eli. But I didn't drop out. I finished. And tonight, the trust was about to unlock. So now they had to pretend I mattered. A couple tables over, some woman with a clipboard leaned in and asked my dad something. He nodded, gave a tight smile, then glanced my way for a split second. Calculating. They weren't celebrating me. They were celebrating their own play. Lasker Energy could say they supported education, family values, green aviation tech, whatever lie they needed for their next investor pitch. I looked down at the drink still in my hand, unswitched, untouched. Ben. It was Mom. She appeared next to me like she always did, graceful, rehearsed, glowing with fake warmth. "You should mingle," she said. "The mayor wants to meet you. It'd mean a lot to your father." I stared at her for a beat. "I don't think he's really interested in what I do." Her smile didn't move. "Don't be dramatic." She reached up to adjust my collar like I was still 15. "You're part of this family. Act like it." I stepped back before she could touch me again. "That why you made sure not one person from my program got invited, not even Max?" She blinked, just once, then tilted her head. "You know how these things work." Yeah, I knew exactly how they worked. I turned and walked toward the far end of the roof, somewhere quiet. Let them play pretend. I wasn't part of their show. I leaned over the glass railing and stared at the skyline like it could tell me what the hell I was doing here. Their voices buzzed behind me, suits talking strategy, investors swapping war stories. 3 months ago, none of these people would have said my name unless they were asking where to park. It all started in that boardroom. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd been dragged in to fix a busted projector before one of Dad's quarterly briefings. I was halfway under the damn table when the fight broke out. One of the junior lawyers snapped. She slammed a folder down and shouted, "Why don't you ask Ben about the trust your father left him instead of fighting over scraps?" The room went dead silent. I froze, still holding a cable in one hand. Dad didn't look at me. He looked at her, cold and flat, like she'd just handed a live grenade to a toddler. The next day, everything changed. Suddenly, Mom was calling me every morning. "Just checking in, honey." She started tagging me in posts from the company's LinkedIn. "Proud of our future. Innovation starts at home. All of it coated in fake sugar." Then came the lunches. They took me to Perry's downtown, like we were some tight little family. Talked about how proud they were, how maybe there was a place for me at the company, public-facing, of course. "You're good with people," Mom said. "You could be a face for the next generation." I didn't believe a word of it. Max didn't either. He pulled me aside one night after class, arms still covered in engine grease. "Your dad's not the type to offer steak unless he's setting up the kill. Don't drink the wine, dude." Jordan was blunter. "Something's off. These people bury oil spills under PR videos. They don't do family bonding." He wasn't wrong. My parents were sharks in business suits. Every deal Dad ever closed was wrapped in a smile and soaked in bribes. They used to ship flammable waste to Mexico under fake labels. Had a team of lawyers for every inspector they needed to convince. That was their whole legacy. Clean image, dirty hands, and suddenly they were proud of me. They asked if they could host a celebration on the rooftop. I asked who else was coming. They said close friends and colleagues. I said maybe, then I said yes. I needed to see what they were playing at, so I started watching. Every compliment, every warm moment, I kept track. There was a rhythm to it, like they were hitting marks in a script. "You ever think about going back for a bachelor's?" Dad asked once over lunch. "We'd be happy to help fund that." "You could open your own shop," Mom offered another time. "With our support, of course. We'd want to help you build something real." Real, that was rich. Even Eli started acting weird. He'd always treated me like a cousin he barely knew. But now, he was texting me articles on aviation startups, tagging me in stories about electric planes. It all felt rotten. They weren't jealous. That wasn't the word. It was fear, because they weren't in control. Grandpa had set the rules. I had earned the degree. The trust would go to me, and they couldn't touch it. Not unless something happened. They weren't celebrating me. They were cornered. One night, Max laid it out straight. We were sitting on the tailgate outside the hangar, watching the sun crash into the hills. "Ben," he said, "I don't care how nice they're acting. People like that only move when money tells them to. This isn't about love. It's leverage." I didn't say anything, but I already knew. That's why I came to the rooftop tonight. not to be honored, not to smile for the press. I came to confirm what I'd already suspected, and now, standing there, drink still untouched in my hand, with Eli laughing in the background and Dad pretending I didn't just outplay him, I knew exactly what game they'd been playing. And it wasn't over yet. I spotted him near the buffet. Walter McGee, old-school aircraft inspector, retired FAA, and one of the few people I actually respected in this whole damn city. He'd taught me more about engines than any of my instructors. The guy could diagnose a failing cylinder just by the way it coughed at idle, but now he was dressed in a suit that didn't fit and holding a soda like he hated being here. He caught my eye and motioned me over with 2 fingers, low and tight. "Didn't think I'd see you here," I said, keeping my voice light. He didn't smile. I almost didn't come. His eyes scanned the crowd behind me. "Listen, kid, you need to stay sharp tonight." My chest tightened. "Why?" "Because I've got friends still on the inside. Your dad's company is under investigation. Real one, not rumor. The feds are circling." I didn't react, just nodded like he was telling me the shrimp was undercooked. "They're desperate, Ben." He leaned in closer. "When powerful people get desperate, they make mistakes." Then he patted my shoulder and walked away like we were just talking about the weather. My mouth went dry. I started scanning the rooftop like it was a crime scene. That's when I noticed it. The servers were moving weird, not just making rounds, repositioning. One at the corner table swapped spots with another near the bar. A third server walked a tray of drinks out, then circled back without offering any to the guests nearby. Then, a guy from some environmental group who'd been talking with Eli got quietly pulled to the other side of the terrace. I watched Mom guide him with a hand on his elbow. 10 seconds later, another executive couple was moved in right where he'd been. The layout was changing. This whole event was staged, sure, but now it felt more like theater. Everyone was being set up for something. Then I saw the tray. It was by the champagne tower, lowball glasses, amber liquid, single ice cubes melting slow. Same drink Dad handed me earlier. Except now there were 6 of them. No tags, no servers standing by, just placed like bait. I moved toward the far side, near the staff hallway, trying to stay out of sight. Something in my gut said, "Don't leave this rooftop without answers." Then I heard their voices. Mom first, tight, low whisper. He was supposed to take it. That was the whole point. Dad replied, calm as ever. "It's not lethal. Just enough to stall him. All we need is a few months. Then the trust reverts." I felt my jaw clench so hard it ached. My own parents were planning to drug me, put me out of commission, maybe a hospital bed, maybe worse. All so they could run the clock out and grab the money back. But I'd switched the glass. I felt everything shift in that second. My pulse, my breath, the floor under my feet. Eli had taken the dose. I backed away from the hallway slowly, quiet, careful. My fingers tingled. Could have been adrenaline, could have been rage. When I stepped back out onto the main floor, it was like stepping onto a stage again. Everyone smiling, laughing, talking like nothing underhanded was happening just beneath their $800 shoes. Dad was near the bar, pouring himself something lighter now. Vodka, maybe. He nodded at a congressman and gave him the firm, 2-pump handshake he used with donors. Mom was across the terrace, checking the placement of a floral display. She adjusted one petal, stepped back, and smiled like it fixed the world. And Eli, he was 20 feet away, mid-laugh, glass already empty. I stood by a railing and kept my face still. No reaction, no panic. Just watched it all unfold like I was one of them. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I'd seen the play. I'd stepped around it, and now someone else was holding the consequences. Eli dropped his glass. It hit the concrete and cracked. Not a full shatter, just enough to make a sharp sound that cut through the music and fake laughter. He swayed once, just a little at first. Then his knees buckled, and he grabbed the back of a chair like he was drunk. Only he wasn't drunk. He was drenched. Sweat soaked through his button-down in seconds. I saw the fabric cling to his spine. People started turning, confused at first, then nervous. I pushed off the railing and moved, fast. Max met me halfway, phone in hand. "I got it," he muttered. "Everything. The handoff, him drinking, your old man's face, all of it." I barely heard him. Eli was going down. He dropped to his knees, gasping, eyes wide like he couldn't see anything. "Call an ambulance," someone shouted, but I was already kneeling beside him, checking his pulse. His skin was clammy. His pupils were shot, pinpoint small. Twitching started in his left hand, neck stiff. He tried to speak, but it came out as a groan. I'd seen this before, in class, experimental case studies, nervous system toxins. "Get the EMTS," I yelled to no one in particular. "Now!" One of the servers ran for the elevator. Another pulled a radio off their belt. Guests were stepping back, panicking. Staff clustered in. Mom was across the rooftop, frozen. Dad stood by the bar with his drink, jaw tight, watching but not moving. He knew the exact second Eli's body gave up what was in the glass. I looked at Max. "Get the video to Jordan. Tell him to back it up off-site now." Max nodded and bolted. Then I turned to the closest staff member. "Tell the medics when they get here. Symptoms are consistent with a neuroinhibitor, experimental, probably developed in-house by Lasker Labs." The guy blinked. "A what?" "Neuroinhibitor," I snapped. "They'll know what it means. Rapid central nervous system shutdown, sweating, tremors, loss of coordination. If they don't act fast, it'll hit respiratory next." Eli started choking, hands twitching against the floor like a puppet with cut strings. The elevator doors opened and 2 EMTs burst out with a stretcher and a trauma kit. "Male, late 20s, I shouted as they got to him. "Severe parasympathetic symptoms, onset under 10 minutes. Suspected exposure to a designer neurocompound. No known allergies." One of them looked at me like I was from another planet. "You a doctor?" "No, I'm a certified A&P mechanic, and I passed pharmacological systems 3 months ago. Trust me, he doesn't have time." They dropped down beside Eli and got to work fast. IV started, vitals logged. One of them pulled out a ventilator mask. Another guest screamed. Then 3 others pulled out their phones. The panic spread faster than the toxin did. I backed off while they loaded Eli onto the stretcher. I tried to follow, no chance. "You family?" the medic asked as the doors closed. "I'm his brother." "Then stay here. We've got this." I watched the elevator lights blink red as they went down. The second they were gone, I took out my phone. First call, my lawyer. "Yeah, it's go time," I said. "Get to Methodist Medical. Now. Bring the trust documents, the video, everything." Second call, Pete Dawson, FAA compliance director, and a guy who had once told me, "If your dad ever crosses a line, don't hesitate." He picked up on the second ring. "Ben, I need to know if your team has anything on a neurocompound being tested under Lasker's name, something unregistered." Silence, then, "You found something." "No," I said, "but it found us." I ended the call, shoved my phone back in my pocket, and turned around. The rooftop was chaos. Security tried to hold back a few nosy reporters who'd snuck past the press rope. Guests were demanding answers. Dad was nowhere to be seen. Mom stood near the elevator, looking pale and hollow. A glass clinked behind me. I turned and saw it. Another untouched lowball, same color, same cube, sitting on the edge of the bar like nothing had happened. I picked it up and set it gently on a napkin. My hand didn't shake. Eli had drunk my glass. And now, whether they liked it or not, this whole thing was about to blow open. By the time I got to Methodist Medical, Eli was already in the trauma unit. I didn't sit in the waiting room. I paced, back and forth, right past the nurse's station, ignoring the looks, the whispers. My lawyer hadn't arrived yet, but the call was logged. The video was backed up to 3 separate drives. Max and Jordan were on standby. A young ER doc finally stepped out through the double doors, thin, mid-30s, exhausted already. He looked around, saw me standing alone. "You Ben Lasker?" "Yeah, he's my brother. How is he?" He hesitated, like he was still trying to catch up with the science. "We stabilized him." "Barely. Your field diagnosis was on point. Neuroinhibitor, fast-acting, unclassified. We had to improvise treatment protocols using your notes." I nodded, tight. "That's what hit him." "We think so. Toxicology's still working on it, but without your input, he'd probably be brain dead." I didn't say thank you. I just asked, "Is he awake?" "No, he's sedated. We had to intubate, but he's alive." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. A second later, 2 detectives walked in. Plain clothes, no nonsense. One flipped open his badge. "Ben Lasker." "That's me. We're going to need a full statement, here or interview room." Your call. Here's fine. They pulled out notepads, voice recorder, the works. I walked them through everything, every detail, from the rooftop invite to the glass switch, the hallway conversation, the symptoms, the video. I didn't dress it up, didn't try to dramatize. I stuck to the facts. Do you still have the original video? One asked. It's backed up. My friend Jordan has a copy off-site. And your father, he handed you the drink directly. Yes. And you didn't drink it. I gave it to my brother. Did he know? No, I made the switch on instinct. They both went quiet for a second, then one of them leaned in. There's something you should know. The hospital's initial trace scan flagged the compound as structurally similar to a proprietary neuroagent filed under Lasker Bioenergy. That's your family's company, correct? Yeah, I said. My throat went dry again. We already had eyes on them, the older detective added. But this connects dots. Before I could ask what else they had, the doors banged open. My father stormed in, dragging some pitbull-looking attorney behind him. Custom suit, perfect tie, phone glued to one ear. You don't say a word, Benjamin, Dad snapped. Not one goddamn word. The younger detective stepped between us, cool and firm. Sir, this is a criminal investigation. You can speak through your lawyer, or you can step outside. Dad's lawyer finally hung up and turned to the cops. You're questioning a traumatized young man without representation. That's unlawful. He's clearly trying to frame my client. I didn't move. Frame him for what? Handing me a poisoned drink I didn't ask for. That's slander, the lawyer barked. No, the older detective cut in, pulling a tablet from his coat. This is science. He swiped to a screen. Initial chemical match. Compound X4RN. Developed under Lasker Labs' restricted R&D division. Matches residue from the glass, the tray, and your brother's bloodstream. Dad didn't flinch. Of course he didn't. He was too polished for that. But the lawyer's mouth tightened. We also pulled rooftop surveillance, the detective continued. Hotel cameras caught the exact moment your client handed the drink to his son. Then we saw Ben walk away, switch glasses with his brother, and never take a sip. I watched Dad's face. No guilt, no shock, just calculation. He turned to me like nothing had happened. You think you've won something here? He said low. No, I said. I think Eli didn't die. And you're pissed that the wrong son took the fall. He stepped closer, but the detective blocked him again. You're done here, sir. Dad didn't argue. He adjusted his tie and walked out like he was heading to a golf game. I turned back to the doctors. When he wakes up, I want to be in the room. The doc nodded, slowly. We'll let you know. I leaned against the wall, throat tight, mind racing. Everything was coming apart, finally, and for the first time, it wasn't on my shoulders. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the hospital hallway, arms crossed, watching nurses move in and out of Eli's room. Machines beeped, doors clicked. It all felt too quiet for what was coming. The next morning, the dam broke. A federal agent showed up in a Navy suit and a badge that shut down any arguments. He had a laptop, 2 flash drives, and a folder with my father's name on it in bold red letters. He handed one of the flash drives to the detectives and opened the laptop right there at the nurse's station. No hesitation, no lead-up. This, he said, tapping the screen, is a company-wide email from 2 months ago. Request for compound X4RN, pulled from restricted status by executive override. The email was short, clean, direct, and signed, Charles Lasker, CEO. He scrolled again. And here, internal memo chain between Elizabeth Lasker and 2 board members. They're discussing the contingency plan for the trust. I leaned in. Contingency. He nodded. Your graduation posed a problem. They thought if your health status changed, if you were incapacitated, the payout would delay or revert. They were working off a clause hidden in the trust's dependency conditions. Your mother flagged it, helped keep it quiet. The screen showed timestamps, her initials, approval tags. It was all there. They weren't trying to kill you, the agent said. They just needed you out of the way. Long enough for the money to roll back under corporate control. And they planned all that before the party. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. A radio squawked at the end of the hall. 5 more agents entered. 1 went straight to the admin desk, badge out. 2 more flanked the corridor leading to the elevators. No one yelled, no one ran. This was a surgical takedown. My mom arrived first. I saw her heels before I saw her face, clicking fast against the linoleum, trying to stay upright. "Benjamin, what is this?" she snapped, spotting the agents. "Why are there... Elizabeth Lasker." She turned. 2 officers were already beside her. "This is a federal arrest. You are being charged with conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and attempted financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent." She broke. Right there in the hallway, collapsed against the wall, crying, makeup smearing across her cheekbones, hands cuffed behind her back. "I didn't hurt anyone," she sobbed. "It was supposed to be clean. Just clean." I didn't move. Then came Dad. He walked out of a consultation room like he'd just wrapped a business deal. Calm, cuffed, chin high. "Mr. Lasker," the agent said, "you're under arrest for executive-level misconduct, chemical weapons violations, and attempted manslaughter. Anything you say, spare me the theatrics," he muttered. "Get the camera angle right at least. The press will eat this up." "You're being escorted through a medical facility," one officer warned. "Don't make it worse." He glanced at me as they passed, smiled, like we were still playing chess. Then they both disappeared into the elevator, my mom sobbing, my dad silent. Right behind them, Eli's heart monitor kept its slow, steady rhythm. I stood by the door and watched the hallway clear. This wasn't victory, but it was truth. Finally. Eli opened his eyes just after sunrise. I was sitting in the chair by the window, legs stretched out, arms crossed, dead tired but too wired to sleep. When I saw his eyes move, I stood. He looked around slow, like he was underwater. Then his eyes landed on me. And just like that, the fog in his face turned sharp. "You set me up," he said, voice raspy as hell. I didn't flinch. "No, you drank what Dad handed me." He tried to push himself up, winced, and sank back into the bed. His hand trembled as he reached for the IV line. I remember the toast. "You switched our glasses," he said, eyes narrowing. "Why?" "Because I watched him drug mine." His face twitched. I saw it, recognition flickering behind the anger. "You knew," I said. "You knew something was off. I saw it in your face before you drank." Eli didn't answer. I stepped closer. "You gonna tell me you didn't hear anything leading up to that party? No meetings, no whispers, nothing about my trust or that compound." His jaw clenched, then he looked away. "I saw the R&D file 3 weeks ago. Just a summary. I didn't read the full report." "Why not?" "I thought it was a bluff," he muttered. "Some tool to scare a supplier into compliance. I didn't think—" He stopped himself. "You didn't think they'd use it on their own son." He didn't respond. Silence sat between us like a third person in the room. Finally, Eli looked at me again, slower this time. "I got an internal memo about you. Something about contingency options. The language was vague, legal stuff. It didn't say drug you. But it didn't say don't." He nodded once. I didn't push. I looked the other way. I pulled the chair back to his bedside and sat. "They've been covering things up for years, haven't they?" Eli let out a tired breath. "Scrubbed emissions data, faked pressure readings, unreported drilling leaks near 3 protected sites. I saw it all over the last year and kept quiet." "Why?" "Because I was them," he said, voice flat. "And because I thought it was all just the cost of winning." He closed his eyes for a second, like he hated the taste of the truth. I leaned forward. "So what now?" Eli looked at me like that question actually hurt. Then he swallowed hard. "I'll testify," he said. "I'll tell them everything. Not just what happened to me, everything. I can't live with it anymore." That silence came back again, but this time, it didn't hang as heavy. For the first time, Eli didn't feel like some suit with my last name. He felt human. He'd taken the hit meant for me, and now he was finally owning the mess we both came from. I stood and nodded once. "I'll be there when you do." His voice cracked a little. "Thanks." Then we sat there in the room, side by side, listening to the heart monitor beep steady. Not enemies, not pawns, just brothers. They were denied bail. Both of them. Dad barely blinked when the judge read the charges: attempted manslaughter, environmental fraud, regulatory tampering, obstruction, conspiracy. He stood there like he still ran the room. Mom, on the other hand, lost it right there at the defense table. I didn't watch the whole thing. I walked out before they cuffed her again. I didn't need to see it. The footage of Eli collapsing went viral that same week. Someone edited the video into slow motion with the words "Lasker Legacy" burned across the top. Protesters flooded the gates outside the firm's downtown headquarters, chanting slogans we grew up mocking. Oil kills. Greed doesn't bleed. Corporate poison. Public price. I stood in my kitchen watching it unfold on the news, glass of water in my hand, wondering how many people my parents had hurt long before it ever touched me or Eli. So, I took the trust money, every cent, and I built something else. Flight Ground started in a shared office above a closed-down print shop in Siguan. Not flashy, not branded, just me, a whiteboard, a laptop, and Max running field samples out of his truck bed. Our mission was simple: clean up the runoff left behind by old fueling stations and backroad airports nobody cared about anymore. Places where tanks leaked into wells and nothing got fixed because no one in charge lived within 50 miles. I used my mechanical certs and coursework to design a lightweight soil filtration system that could be installed by 2 people and scaled depending on groundwater depth. Max tested it in a town called Comfort, near a fire suppression site that had been bleeding chemicals since the 80s. It worked, not perfectly, but enough. Jordan built the media kit. We kept it honest. No big promises, no polished press, just results. Eli showed up at the office 2 months later. He'd stepped down from every board seat he held. Publicly, no payout, no silence money. Just walked away and started volunteering at a legal clinic that took on small-town environmental lawsuits pro bono. He told me he didn't want to be forgiven. He just wanted to stop doing damage. "You good with public events?" I asked him one night while we boxed up soil cores. He shrugged. "As long as I'm not holding a mic." "Too bad," I said. "I've got a town hall next Thursday in Gonzales. We're presenting filtration data and meeting with the airport commission." He smirked. "You're really dragging me into this non-profit thing, huh?" "No," I told him. "I'm dragging you into cleaning up what we grew up ignoring." He didn't argue. We started doing events together, real ones, not red carpets, town halls and firehouses, meetings in school gyms, church basements. People didn't clap. Most just stared. Some shouted. One guy in Bastrop stood up in the middle of my presentation and asked if I was proud of my last name. "No," I said, "but I'm proud of what we're doing now." That shut him up for a second. We handed out testing kits, walked people through how to take soil samples, set up air monitors near homes nobody had inspected in decades. Max built a map showing exposure risk. Jordan helped turn it into an interactive dashboard the county eventually adopted. Slowly they started showing up, not to yell, but to ask questions. Eli stopped wearing cufflinks, started carrying a legal pad full of handwritten notes. I stopped introducing myself as Charles Lasker's son. That name didn't carry the same weight anymore. It felt good, not clean, not heroic, but real. People stopped seeing us as the enemy and started seeing us as people, flawed, honest, working people. We never asked for praise. We just kept showing up. One night after a long day installing filters near a shuttered municipal airport, Eli and I sat on the tailgate of Max's truck, passing a thermos of cheap coffee back and forth. "You think it's ever going to be enough?" he asked. "No," I said, "but it'll be better than doing nothing." He nodded, looking out at the tree line where the sun was bleeding into the hills. And for once, I didn't feel like we were stuck in a legacy we couldn't outrun. We weren't building an empire. We were building something else. The courtroom was full, wall to wall, with reporters, activists, former employees, even a few people from towns we'd worked in. Eli sat beside me, quiet, suit plain, and pressed. My hands were folded in my lap, but my jaw was tight. This was the end of it, finally. Judge Harrison looked worn down, like she'd been waiting years to deliver this. She read through the charges one by one: attempted manslaughter, conspiracy to defraud, obstruction of environmental oversight, tampering with federal regulatory filings. The list was longer than most rap sheets I'd seen. Then came sentencing. Charles Lasker, 24 years. Elizabeth Lasker, 21. Not a sound in the room. Dad stood to speak. Of course he did. "In our line of work," he said, voice still full of pride, "legacy matters. I did what I had to do to preserve something bigger than one person's mistake." He looked straight at me when he said mistake, like I was the problem. Still. Even now. Mom didn't speak. She cried again, softer this time, but never once turned to face us, never looked at either of her sons. When the gavel dropped, reporters burst into motion, flashbulbs, mics, phones in our faces before we even hit the hallway. One of them got close. "Ben, do you regret switching the glass?" I didn't hesitate. Only regret is that I was born into a family where loyalty meant silence. More cameras clicked. Then Eli stepped in beside me, voice firm but steady. "My brother saved my life. I'm not proud of my past, but I won't stay quiet anymore." A few flashes slowed, one camera lowered. We didn't say anything else, just walked, past the shouting, past the swarm, out of the courthouse, shoulder to shoulder. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time, that was enough.